This is a Headgum podcast. Knowing me, knowing you, there is nothing we can do. Knowing me, knowing you, we just have to face it this time. This time, we're through. This time we're through. We're really through. Breaking up is never easy. I know. But I have to go. This time I have to go. This time I know. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do. That is my spoken word version of Knowing Me, Knowing You by the one, the only ABBA, or ABBA, depending on the school of thought you're in. The year is 2001. And today, to take us back to 2001, to get us in the mood, I'm going to read us what is popping off on the charts. For starters, Survivor by Destiny's Child. Huge. When It's Over by Sugar Ray. When it's over, that's the time I fell in love again. Wow, Sugar Ray was good. Lady Marmalade, very big song with, of course, Christina Aguilera, Maya, Pink, and Lil' Kim. Drops of Jupiter by Train. Wow, this was a really big year for music. Hit 'Em Up Style by So Blue. Oops, there goes my skirt up over my face? No, shirt up over my face. That would make more sense. Where the Party At by Jagged Little Thrill? No, Where the Party At is by, Jagged Edge on their album Jagged Little Thrill, which we love that wordplay. What else? And there's truly so many hits I want to say all of them, but I'm going to end it on this, okay? Because this is still one of my favorite songs. All For You by none other than Janet Jackson came out in 2001. So did I'm Real by J-Lo. Okay, two things that still influence my life to this day. And where were we when all of these people were making music history, like Peaches and Cream and Contagious and Love Don't Cost a Thing? We were in Haddonfield, New Jersey. The year's 2001, and we're Jena Friedman. Jena.
Listening to ABBA.
Look, it's good. I was also I was one of those kids where in middle school, I really wanted to live in the 60s and 70s. And I was Zeppelin is life. I love Robert Plant. Listening to ABBA in high school, I think is cool. Are you ABBA or ABBA?
I mean, it's probably ABBA, but I've always said ABBA. I'm from South Jersey. I don't know. People don't really listen to ABBA, whatever. I do in middle school though. We had it was Green Day, Cranberries, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana. So I love that music and I listen to that a lot. In high school, I think I don't know. I did listen to Nelly. I listened to ABBA. I listened to Fleetwood Mac. I listened to an eclectic mix. There was a Tower Records.
Love it.
I kind of just listened to all sorts of things. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication.
Were you a big music person in high school?
No, I'm still not a big music person, which is so weird. But I think a lot of comedians, and my husband's a musician, and I only really dated musicians. I don't know what that's about. But a lot of comedians appreciate music. Musicians appreciate comedians. But a lot of comedians I have found, and please correct me if I'm wrong, are not music snobs or music buffs for whatever reason, even though we do such similar things. I like good music, but I was never it was never a centerpiece of my life.
Yeah. I think that for a really long time in DC, for whatever reason, I spent most of my time going to concerts.
Well, DC is a cool dynamic city. I was in Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Is it? Is DC a cool dynamic city?
Compared to a suburb of New Jersey, absolutely. When you're in high school, it's accessible. It is cool. There was a really interesting.
There's an interesting music scene historically.
Hip-hop, yeah.
Exactly. I'm so happy that you agreed to come on my show because you, I think, are one of the smartest people on earth. And I love talking to people that I'm very intellectually intimidated by. And I always wonder, like, what were these people like in high school? Because so often it's not what you think, or it's like exactly what you think. So
I would be curious to know what you think, and then I can tell you. I mean, I was like I had a pretty, I was like basic upbringing.
Yeah.
Small town, New Jersey, public school.
Yeah. Were you like an athlete? Were you?
Should I ask you?
Okay.
You
do you
think
want? If my hypothesis?
Yes.
I think that you were a really good student. I'm inclined to say you're a really good student. I feel like your attitude toward high school at large, you were probably like, I know my life is so much bigger than this place, but like here I am and I'm going to get through it and it's going to be fine. I feel like you probably had a lot of friends, but like you also knew that you weren't in high school being like, this is my peak, this is my moment, it's never going to get better than this. And I could see you playing sports. I could see you playing like a soccer or a field hockey even, or maybe a lacrosse if we're in New Jersey, or basketball or swimming. I'm just going to name every sport. Squash, softball, tennis.
I was all state. Yeah. I played tennis.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You have the intensity of an athlete.
Thank you.
You know, which is good. I always think that like comics, especially that went from like really good athletes, they have such discipline in their lives that they're like the most impressive joke writers because they're just like, this is a disciplined
like a
sport.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like you maybe drank, but you weren't like a partier.
I drank.
Or maybe you were.
We all drank in the woods. I mean, I did play tennis and I ran winter and spring track. So I didn't get into too much trouble. There was one moment in 8th grade, my friend invited me into the woods to drink with her. And I was really nervous about it. And I didn't go, and she ended up getting arrested. And that would have been bad for me. I'm glad I didn't do that.
So did she just go into the woods and just drank alone?
No. She was with like the older guys. We were in 8th grade. They were, I think, sophomores in high school, and and she got arrested. It was pretty scandalous.
What were they drinking?
Natty Ice, Natty Light, Colt 45. That's what we drank.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we drank too. We drank Natty Ice, Natty Light, what's the other one? Another cheap, shitty beer. Bush.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
We we would drink Rolling Rock. That was like a big beer that we drank too.
Classic.
Oh, and Yingling, which is a Philly beer.
There you go. The little Pennsylvania brew.
Yeah.
Isn't Rolling Rock also from Pennsylvania?
Probably. Yeah. Latrobe or something.
I think it is. So when you were in high school, when you were a freshman, you immediately played sports.
I did. I mean, I was a tennis player. We won states my sophomore year, I think. And then I was all South Jersey, I think, my senior year. Yes. But so my school was pretty vanilla. You know, it was a public school, but it almost was like a private school. Very homogenous. I was like one of the only Jewish kids in my grade. I was the diversity for whatever that I know. Small town. We walked everywhere. It was like a really nice place to grow up. It felt pretty safe.
Sounds like Pleasantville, walking everywhere.
Kind of. Yeah. We walked to school. Yeah. And then all the girls played sports. So I never got into theater. My mom never wanted me to do theater for whatever reason. But there were the theater kids and then the athletes. And I think we called them like the church people and the circle people because there was a parking lot that was shaped like a circle and all the athletes hung out there. And then the church were kind of like gothy kids, which I think my at my soul was like a gothy kid, but I just always played sports. So it was like never.
So you were a circle kid. You wanted to be a church kid, but you were a circle
I don't
kid.
think I wanted to be a church kid. I think I just probably innately, like, I don't know if like the church kids would have been like, I would have been friends with them more than, I mean, I had a lot of friends, but yeah, I mean, I think I always had like a dark kind of gothy vibe. It just I never unleashed it, you know, it was like always until
suppressed.
Like my awkward phase was when I got into comedy. That was when I kind of explored that.
Were you an only child?
Older sister, but she was a senior in high school when I was in 8th grade.
That's the same as me and my sister.
Yeah. Did you guys get along?
Yes. I mean, we're like best friends now. But of course, there was a time growing up when she was like, get the fuck out of my face. And I was like,
but she was like the cool older sister that really, and like you weren't in high school together, so she didn't step on your toes.
Yeah, and outside of that, we also went to different high schools. But her boyfriend did go to my high school, so there was some like crossover there. But I was always like, you know, I also have an older brother, and I academically always lived in their shadow because both of my siblings are very, very good. I mean, we're all smart. I'm going to say I'm smart, but my siblings are like very academically smart. And so
you're the baby though.
Yes. Gotta love me, you know.
I did the same thing with the dinosaurs. And the baby gotta love me.
Exactly. Baby's like, I don't know. You're a baby. It's
a lot of comedians are the baby in the family.
Yeah, because we're starved for attention.
And because I think the firstborn has to shoulder all the expectations of the parents. Whereas like, we're just like, I'm going to go into comedy.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go to University of Arizona my freshman year of college.
Wow. Wait, wow. That's a party school.
It was actually insane. Then I'm going to transfer and go to art school in New York. And then after I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go into comedy. So I really
sounds perfect.
Did the trifecta of sin. But, you know, here we are talking about high school. Did you have a boyfriend in high school?
I did not. Like I remember asking my mom, I think my friend's younger sister, who was maybe 15 or 16, went on the pill. She was like dating a guy and she went on the pill. And I was maybe 16 or 17. I'm driving with my mom and I asked her, if I wanted to go on the pill, you know, what would you say? And she said, by the time I got done talking to you, you wouldn't even want to have sex. Sex is about power. She was very much like that. And I now understand where she was coming from and what happened in her life that put her in that mindset. But yeah, I didn't even date until, I mean, I like, you know, we would like hook up with people in college, but like I didn't really have like a boyfriend until like my current husband.
That's so nice.
I dated, you know, for a decade in New York. I had, you know, like, and I had like a couple like shorter term things, but I didn't have a long-term relationship until like 35.
Do you think that helped you be more focused like in high school?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think I thought that there was like something wrong with me for so long. And then, but I think a lot of, and maybe it's changing generationally, but I think with my generation and generation above me, so Gen X, older millennial, whatever you want to call us, I think the men are getting better. Like my generation of men, their moms were feminists. I've never like had a problem with them, but like when I would date older guys or whatever, I do think that and I do think in general, there's an expectation on women to be like the caretakers or to like give a lot more emotional labor in relationships. And I think I'm just glad that I didn't like waste. It sounds so weird because what is wasting time and not, but I had a lot of friends who were in like 5 or 6 year serious relationships in their 20s and early 30s. And I think it can be a real time suck, but my mom was always like, she wanted me to just like be selfish and develop my own shit.
That's
not
so nice.
Comedy. She didn't want me doing comedy, but she wanted me to like take care of myself.
To just develop as your own person.
Yeah.
My mom always, I had two very serious high school boyfriends, and my mom was always like, Greta, if you could only see what a waste of fucking time this is, like, dump them, break up with them, stop it. Stop thinking. I was definitely one of those high schoolers where I was like, they're the love of my life. Like,
but you also learn a lot from those. Like before I met my husband, who's amazing, I was like 34 and in New York, and I was like, what is wrong with me? I thought I wrote a screenplay actually a little bit around that time about a woman who falls in love with a serial killer, and then they try to make it work, because I was like looking at all these like and this is like serial killers now are like the new vampires, are like trendy again, but I think this is like before they were trendy. Just looking at like Gary Ridgway and Ted Bundy and all these men who like murdered women but also had like healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And I was like, they can do it. Why can't I? Like, I felt like totally broken because I couldn't. And I was like, if I'd only dated in high school more, or like built that skill. And then I saw a therapist and got better.
I don't know. I also feel like you going to high school between the years of like 1997 and 2001, right?
Right before 9/11. I was a freshman in college. I had to drive to college instead of fly because 9/11 happened. So
where'd you go to college?
I went to Northwestern in Chicago. I almost went to NYU, and I would have probably gotten to comedy sooner, after being there at that time. But, yeah, I was very lucky when I went to high school. It was kind of like the last it was just such a naive moment in American history, the time and place that I was in.
I mean, I vividly remember, obviously we all remember when 9/11 happened, but I feel like I wonder, you kind of were the last generation to graduate high school in that area.
It's why I'm a comedian. I mean, okay, so don't make fun of me. I wrote a book that's coming out. I'm doing this because I have the Galleys copies right in front of me in my office.
Please.
I wrote a book. It's coming out
in April. April what?
Funny. April 18th.
The day before my birthday. I was about to say April 19th. Is it my birthday gift? Well, it's my early birthday gift.
My mom's birthday is April 19th. So
really?
Yeah. So April 18th. It's called Not Funny. And my opening, like the prologue, is about how I think 9/11 made me a comedian.
Why?
Because when you're about to go into college and you turn on the TV and you see, this is so grim, but you see people like jumping to their deaths in business suits, you're like, I want to go into comedy.
Yeah, yes. I mean,
Like,
I don't mean to, I don't mean to laugh, but it does make everything like, it is such a shift of perspective. I mean,
you're just like, fuck working for the man if you can.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to die in a business suit. That was like my mantra, and partly why I ended up in comedy, because I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to not work in like an office. And I did work in an office. I worked in consulting right after college, and I like had some odd jobs as I was like getting into comedy, but always in the back of my head, I just like those like images of those poor people jumping to their deaths were seared into my brain at like such a pivotal time.
I mean, I remember being in my bedroom and seeing the smoke from the Pentagon.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And being so confused. And also my brother worked downtown, like on the hill, and he sprinted back to our house, which is a very, very long run. And I just remember that day being just, I felt fragility for the first time, even as a 12-year-old, you know, like, which is a very interesting sensation when you're a child, which is kind of the interesting sensation that you felt going to college, where it's like, you're supposed to be embarking on this, especially at that time, college was really marketed as like, you are going to go on and become the next great thing.
It actually was that for so long. I mean, the way that we felt for 9/11, I think, like looking at the pandemic, it's like that this whole generation is just like, what is anything?
Yeah.
Because everything they knew has kind of been shattered.
Well, it's like I'm so fascinated by TikTok, as so many of us are. And like, I'm deeply fascinated by watching, 16-year-olds that have 4 million followers talking about like the tears in the Matrix. I'm like, wow. When I was 16, I was like sucking some guy off, like listening to bad music, ripping a bong, and like being a little shit, not talking about how like the Matrix is now like glitching.
I mean, I think I just got on TikTok because I'm like promoting this true crime show that I worked on, and I can't keep up. Like I'm already on Twitter too much. And like Instagram, I am on it, but I don't engage as much. But TikTok is like, it can't be good. It can't be healthy I mean, it's so interesting.
It's so stimulating.
It's overly stimulating. Yeah, it's too much.
Sorry,
giving
back to
a guy
high school.
a blowjob at 16 while smoking pot and listening to shitty music is like really healthy compared to getting like clinical depression and tics from like being on TikTok.
I mean, I agree. Like, I was a depressed teen without all of that shit. So I can't imagine how I would feel with all of that shit.
Yeah. And I was anxious. I think I totally had an undiagnosed anxiety disorder that now manifests through my comedy, but I was really anxious. And to think about what kids growing up now are seeing, I can't even imagine. We have our little baby, and I'm just like, I don't want to be one of those parents who's like, no social media, but it's like my husband and I are on our phones all the time, and I just don't want that for him.
I completely agree. Do you feel, okay, sorry, back to high school. Now I'm just jumping all over the place.
Well, we haven't talked in a while. It's nice to catch up.
I know. When you were in high school, were you like politically engaged? Were you interested in that? Like, what was your interest? Because I feel, I'm curious of like what you talk about in your comedy, what you're interested in excavating and exploring now. Were you always interested in that when you were in high school?
I was an other. So I was like, literally, me and my friend David were like two of the only Jewish kids in our class. And I think because I kind of I've got like a waspy look to me. I definitely did when I was like captain of the high school tennis team.
Oh, if you told me your last name was like McKenna and you were like fresh off the Mayflower, I would be like, okay.
But I think, I mean, and I talk about this in the book too, because I have a whole chapter about like dead baby jokes. And I think like one of my first like conscious acts of subversion, I would tell dead baby jokes when kids would like tell like racist they would tell racist jokes. And I felt like dead baby jokes were like equal opportunity offenders because there are dead babies of every culture and race and religion. And I think because I didn't like look Jewish, people felt comfortable telling jokes like that to me. And so I do think because I grew up on it was like Irish Catholic, Italian Catholic, Protestant. That was my town. That just like being Jewish, I was just kind of like I just felt like a little bit like an outsider. And when you're put in this situation as an outsider, I do think you are inherently more political because you're othered. And so you see the world in a little bit of a different way. And I had experiences. I remember I had some experiences with like teachers that were kind of anti-Semitic growing up, and I dealt with that. And I remember, it was subtle, but it was,
it's so wild to think. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast. Did you have teachers greatly impact children's lives. And I think sometimes it's scary to me when I think back to certain ways teachers have spoken to me or to friends of mine, or even other stories that I hear on this show. I'm always like, wow, teachers have such a responsibility. Obviously, we treat them like shit in this country. So like, why would they be incentivized to not say something fucked up when they already get treated like shit? But did you have the experience with teachers where you were like, what the fuck is going on?
Sure, all the time. I had some really good teachers too. In the book, I write about a teacher that I had sophomore year of high school, an English teacher. And it's interesting because I don't want to spoil it, but he was eccentric, and he was like the first, we would, sorry, we would write these journal entries every week or every other week. And he would really encourage us to like be creative and like write from our heart. He was kind of like the, Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society, if you could think of somebody like that. But then also he just kind of had this, I don't want to say like quirky streak. I talk about it in the book, but the long story, well, he had an affair with a student in my sister's class, and he never, that all came out years and years later. But to your point about how teachers can impact students, I just think about like this teacher who we were all such targets because he was like encouraging us to write these journal entries, and we would write these essays. And I remember like, I just wanted to get an A in his class. So like at like halfway through the year, I just started like writing about like a guy I kissed at a party over the weekend and just trying to do that for him. And I think we think of kids as like not as smart as they are, but I remember being, and I think most kids do, like I remember like in 5th and 6th grade when I had the anti-Semitic teachers, like I was so with it then that I knew what was up. And with this guy, I was already like 15 or 16, so I knew what he wanted, and I would never, like cross any lines, but I knew how to like manipulate that scenario to get a better grade. But then 100%. I talk about, that kind of like student teacher trope of like how impressionable we are in certain ways, and how I can imagine so much like creative potential among young people, particularly female, but also young guys too, has been snuffed out by like creepy teachers and mentors and predators and stuff. But I did have one teacher senior year of high school who he was what you would now call an incel. He was a physics teacher. It was his first year at our school. I think he didn't get hired back. But I was chatty, and he wrote "does not behave" in class on my transcript. But that I was a senior, and I was applying early I applied early to Penn. And my guidance counselor didn't submit the transcript because he couldn't get the "does not behave" in class off of it. And I had like all A's, all AP classes, and this one "does not behave" in class mark. So, I mean, I didn't get in early to Penn, but it all worked out. But I remember being when you talk about like righting the wrongs, like I remember just being so frustrated because I went to a public school in New Jersey. You're not going to get into like an Ivy League college if you have "does not behave" in class on your transcript. And I remember being devastated at the time because I just thought that was like what I like needed to do to be successful in life, to get into like that school.
Well, by the way, both of my siblings went to Penn,
That's
and
so funny. My sister too.
And I,
East Coast.
my dad was like, "You have to apply to Penn. You have to apply to Penn." And I'm like, "Dad, I have a 2.7 GPA. I fell asleep during the SATs, and I got the mark for writing my name. I was like, I am not going to Penn." By the way, I think I'm intellectual enough and smart enough to definitely have succeeded in a place like Penn. I just academically I think I was like an alternative learner or something like that. I think I should have gone to like a different school. I don't know. But all's to say, when you're in high school, you do feel like the rest of my life is riding on whether or not I get into this institution, and like by this person writing something like that, when you're like, bitch, I have worked so hard, and I have given my entire 18 years of life to now get to a point where like I should be able to apply early to Penn, and you, because you hate women, are deciding that you're going to write one little fucking thing on my
The
transcript.
fact that he got away with it was worse, because it was like the guidance counselor and the school could have just been like, nope. And if it was like a private school, they probably would have, but it was like a public school, and they were just like, by the book. And but he was only there for a year, and it was like the tiniest thing. But honestly, I think, the course of my life, going to college in the Midwest, which was totally out of my comfort zone. Senior year, I lived downtown. I got into improv from like studying anthropology and having to write a thesis about something, and like living 2 blocks from Improv Olympic. Like my entire career trajectory would never have happened if I went to school on the East Coast, or if I didn't go to school in Chicago, I think. So it all worked out. But I remember at the time being like so upset.
Yeah, because it's just like, I don't know, it's really upsetting. Ugh. Okay. Well, on this upsetting note, we're gonna go to a little break, and then we're gonna be back, and we're gonna talk more. Okay. And we're back. Okay, so I need to know, like, when you think about your high school, is there one story or moment in time where you're just like, wow, that was so quintessential Jena in high school? That was so
Yeah,
me.
I mean, I definitely have a story, but I'm afraid to say it on the podcast. But I'll tell you offline. It's so funny. And maybe someday I'll write about it. I'll tell you offline. I just can't.
Tell me offline. Okay, so when we're done recording, you'll tell me story number 1. And then is there a story number 2 that you feel comfortable sharing to the world?
I'm sure there is. This one is just so funny. I'm sure there is. I don't know. I don't know. I can't. You did send me the prompts in advance. I should have them.
It doesn't matter. It can literally be anything. It can be like, sometime you kicked a girl's ass in tennis, or maybe a time where you got drunk or kissed someone, or maybe a time when you did you do any extracurriculars? Like, were you on the debate team or anything like that?
I think I did like Model UN for 1 year. It was really sports. I think I just did sports. I just played sports. They took up like all of my time.
Were you a good runner?
I was. My friend Erin Donahue went to the Olympics, and she used to lap me on a high school track. She would lap me. I think I got like I got like a 6:20 mile, which is fine. But she was getting like getting like 5:40 miles. Like, I mean, she was an Olympian. But
that
yeah,
is so crazy.
The women, like the girls' sports in my high school were pretty good. All the women were like athletes and just really like good role models. I remember it was a very feminist upbringing.
Were the girls nice to each other, or did you have like,
yeah, I mean, I got like mean girled in like 6th grade, I think, a little bit. But for the most part, I mean, it was people were pretty nice.
This reminds me of the question that I was going to ask you that I forgot to ask. Do you feel like, in your observation now, when you look at teenagers in high school now, this is kind of like a anthropological episode of high school. We're just analyzing the history of high school culture. I feel like, in your years of high school through when I was in high school, I think it kind of ended maybe around like 2012, but I don't know. I think that it was like peak sexism, in the sense of like the most music in pop culture being like slap a bitch, come in her face, like whatever. The most like rancid shit that we would read about with like paparazzis and Britney Spears and all of that stuff. All of the, even going back to like Monica Lewinsky and like the treatment of women in politics, like, do you think that, because I stand by the fact that I actually think being a young girl, being a teenage girl in that window of time, like especially when the internet started ramping up and Facebook and all of this shit, the toxicity was just at like an all-time high.
So I think I went to high school really before social
all
media.
Of that, before social
media definitely, I think, throws like a grenade into high school dynamics. I do remember Monica Lewinsky, all sorts of stories that are Lorena Bobbitt that that was before I was in high school. But I accredit it to Title IX. I really had a feminist upbringing. Even in college, I played on the lacrosse team, but I wasn't a lacrosse player. I was a runner. And because I went to a Big Ten school and because of Title IX, which one of the things is equal funding for men and women's sports,
right.
They were having any athletic woman who wanted to walk onto a sports team giving her a shot because that meant that they could justify more funding for the football team. So all through high school, some of my best friends were guys, but I really had it felt very egalitarian. Even though the music and pop culture was, Akanele was like before I was in high school, but it was maybe sexist. That type of music did not bleed into the experience that I had. Yeah.
That's so nice. I feel
but
like
I also was, I was a little bit removed from it because I wasn't having sex. I wasn't in relationships with guys who were idiots. I just I was removed from it. So I didn't experience that element of it.
God, see, that's good. That's that's so positive.
Well, I think, and this was to my mom's credit, like and I have to stop saying I say it so much when I'm on podcasts and just kind of thinking out loud, but she kept my sister and myself so busy and we were too tired to get into trouble. And I had a son, but I was thinking about having a daughter and just how, in some ways, how much harder I think it is because of how girls are raised. And it's harder for boys too in a lot of ways. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but just how she made sure that we had a healthy body image and we were really always busy with sports. And I didn't even really know what an eating disorder was until I went to college and I was on this all-girl hall randomly and 3 people got sent home for anorexia. I didn't even know what that looked like really until I got to college. Because high school, I had one friend in high school who I later realized had issues, but the girls we had a lot, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of my friends had self-esteem and were playing sports and were treated as good as the boys were. It just was a really positive, from my experience. Maybe a friend of mine could look back and have a totally different experience. But I also think friends of mine who had really intense, intimate relationships with guys in high school guys are idiots. And so I do think you are more vulnerable. My mom's whole thing too was she's like, just the idea of, if you can't, she never was explicitly if you don't know how to come, sex is going to suck. But I had a lot of friends in high school who were very sexually active and had never had an orgasm. And when you're in that situation in high school, you're just really vulnerable to whatever the guy wants because sex can get really complicated, especially when you're young.
It's a saying on the tagline of this podcast is high school sex is bad. It's bad, bad, bad. It's a waste of time. It's bad. I had so many bad sexual experiences in high school and I rooted so much of my value as a person on being the girl, kind of promiscuous, and it makes me sad that I ever felt that way. But I was really confident and I did love myself, but there was also a part of me that because I was in these physically intimate relationship with men that I did feel that power shift and my only value I have to this person is the fact that I'm willing to have sex with them and let them, come on my tits or something like that. But here we are.
It's hard. How do you, I wouldn't know how to talk to a teenage girl and what to tell her because people do whatever they're going to do. And I don't want to seem prude, but I'm glad I didn't have sex in high school.
Oh my God. Knock, knock, knock. Is that a door knock I hear? Why, yes, it is. We are in the high school guidance counselor's office, and I'm your high school guidance counselor. In this section of the show, we get to rectify a wrongdoing of your high school past. You can either say fuck you to someone, or you can apologize to someone, or you can do both. You can yield this time however you wish.
I would say fuck you to that physics teacher. Sorry, I'm coughing so much.
Fuck you to that physics teacher. I agree. What a little
Where
fuck.
is he now? I don't know.
But like stressed you out and ruined probably like a month of your life.
But he's also partly why I am where I am, and I'm pretty happy. So maybe thank you to that physics teacher.
We don't know. It can be both, you know. Everyone can contain dualities here. Yeah, well, fuck that physics teacher. I always want to say, I never get to say this, and I've said it before, but maybe I'm going to say it again. I would like to say fuck you to my history teacher, who I kind of felt would humiliate me and other students when we wouldn't know certain things. And then it made me scared to potentially be wrong. And instilling the fear of being wrong in youth is simply not how you grow, honey. It's simply not how you grow. Did you have like a signature look in high school? What was your style? What did you wear?
J. Crew.
Really?
I was such a little waspy girl. Yes. I would wear like a khaki skirt with like clogs and a J. Crew sweater.
I love it. That's so classic. That's so chic. Very fall, very like cozy with maybe after practice, like getting a chai or something like that. Did you have a favorite snack in high school? I feel like all my athlete girlies always were.
You know, I loved hoagies. I'm from South Jersey. I loved hoagies and sour cream and onion potato chips and grape soda.
Oh, I love sour cream and onion chips. I love hoagies, and I also love grape soda. But my mom's family is from Scranton. So we're not far from it's like Jersey adjacent over there. Yeah. And putting sour cream and onion chips on your hoagie, in your hoagie, and then washing it down with a grape soda, to me sounds absolutely delectable. Mm-hmm. I love that for you. Did you go to your prom?
Mm-hmm. I went to a couple proms. I went to a prom with a senior. He was dating a girl from another town, but he took me to his prom, and he was like in a gang, but it was like this cheesy gang of like all like, just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But I went to his prom when I was a
Wait,
junior.
what do you mean a cheesy gang?
Their gang was called Dragons Don't Play, and they all had tattoos. And my friend and I, there was this bar called the Milk Bar in West Deptford, New Jersey, that was like an 18 and up or under 18. I don't know. We were not 18 yet. But it was just this cheesy club that I just went with my friend to. It was not my style, but I just went. And then I think the girl that he was dating from another town, he was like, this is horrible to say. I don't know the dynamic, but he invited me to his prom and not her. And I didn't know about her until later. But I just went to his prom.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. He was very attractive. He was in a gang, but he looked like Kyle MacLachlan. He was like very like waspy looking. And I remember, and then I went to all that. We were, the freshman guys that when I was a junior would always take junior girls. So you always had to say yes to whichever freshman invited you to the prom. And then you take the photos of them and they're like this tall and you're like this tall because they're so little.
That's really funny. I've never heard of that.
I remember one year for our prom, I wanted the theme to be cops because it's like you could do chalk bodies on the ground, red and blue lights, caution tape.
Yeah.
Mugshot photos, and everybody's like, that's too dark. No. And then right before COVID, I had a birthday party at like Le Poubelle, and I just decorated it like that. Not like pro-cop, but just like crime scene.
Yeah.
And that was like, someone took a photo of me, and it was just like the last moment where I just feel like life was 2000. Yeah, it was January 2020. I had this big, and it felt like a New York party in LA, and I was really proud because we had a ton of people dancing till like 3:30 or 4 a.m. at Lefty
So
Valley.
Fun. That sounds like a
real
dream.
New York party, yeah.
The good old days, so to speak. If you could go back in time and give your high school self any advice, what would it be?
I mean, I think my high school self knocked it out of the park. I would say don't worry, but I would probably give that same advice to my current self. It's just part of my vibe. Maybe the advice would be like invest in Bitcoin in 2011 or 12 and then just like sell it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Or just like that. It would be fun. It would be like stock tips.
I mean,
when you were making fun of Bitcoin in your screenplay, if you had just not made fun of it when you wrote that screenplay in 2012 and bought a bunch of it, you could probably have financed that screenplay that you're never going to get made. Jenna.
I will say it is devastating to think about friends that I know that have made a ton of money with Bitcoin and told me also in like 2012 to invest in Bitcoin. And I was like, LOL, ha ha ha. No. I still get chills when I think about that guy who has lost his encryption code and doesn't have access to his like billions of dollars.
Yeah. Or the guy that like bought a pizza for 17 Bitcoin. And then like, if he had just not bought that pizza, he would have had $1 million or something. Yeah.
It's all so dumb. Oh God. And you know, wait, I need to know, what did you wear to your senior prom?
You also need to know my superlatives.
That's the last question. This is the second to last question.
Senior prom. I don't know if you're too young for Lomans.
Of course I know Lomans.
So I got a Shell Laundry dress.
Okay, I was just talking about this brand the other day because it was iconic and so chic. And there was always a ton at Lomans. There was a Lomans on Wisconsin Avenue in DC that I loved. Excellent store, Lomans was. Okay, continue. I
have a photo actually because I went right before the Oscars. I went back to visit my parents. They had moved from New Jersey. They moved away from there. But my mom had saved my navy Shell Laundry dress that I wore to prom, and I fit into it. And it's so funny to think about now because I'm like a month postpartum. But
were you like, maybe I should wear to the Oscars?
Yes. My friend who is my stylist, Kat Typaldos, she's incredible. You should actually meet her. She's awesome. I was like, should I wear this? She's like, yeah, it's like a 90s vibe. But hold on, I want to try to see if I can find the photo to just show you. I ended up wearing a Mugler dress to the Oscars that was like a little too small for me, but it was fun.
You looked gorge.
Hold on, let me show. It was a little, there it is. All right, it's navy. It's a tiny bit too tight. Can you see it?
Wait, it's very good. It's really good.
It's just a tiny bit too tight. I'm kind of busting out of it. But that's a Shell Laundry dress from like 2000. And then it's navy. Anyway. That's
really chic that you wore that. Most people were not that forward thinking.
I didn't do the Delia's bullshit. I didn't do like the ruffly, like the halter dress. I mean, I guess halter dresses are back in style, but I always wear.
You weren't hitting like you weren't hitting like Charlotte Russe. You weren't doing like that situation at the mall.
No.
Okay, now it's the moment we've all been waiting for. What were your senior superlatives?
Do you want to guess? I had two of them actually, and it was a class of like 160, and not many people got two. I had two, but do you want to guess what they are or were?
Yeah, I want to take a stab. Are they traditional ones or are they like zany?
Traditional-ish, I think.
Were you most athletic? Was one of them most athletic?
No. Okay. Aaron Donahue. Olympics.
Oh yeah, duh, the Olympian. How could I forget? I don't know. Did you have like a most likely to be on Saturday Night Live one?
I never would have gotten that. Funny.
No,
I never would have
because
gotten that. Who got class clown? I forget. I never would have
what
gotten
did you wait? I'm trying to think of what other. Now I'm like, this whole show was about senior superlatives. Most likely to, like, what did you have, like, most likely to be president? Like, did you have one of those?
No. Should I just tell you? Because tell me. So I don't know if your class had worst driver.
No,
but our class had worst driver, and I actually got it. And they took it out of the yearbook because they thought it would encourage people to drive poorly. The reason I got worst driver is because my birthday is in January.
Yes.
And I am a bad driver. I don't drive in LA. That's my 2023 New Year's resolution to drive. But then I also don't jinx myself because I feel like I will get in an accident. Hopefully it'll be okay. But I'm not a good driver. But my mom we come from a family of not good drivers. So she got me in New Jersey. You need like 6 hours of lessons before you get your permit. And she just like booked like 36 hours of instruction. So I had so many hours of instruction that I was like kind of getting used to someone else having a break, and like they were giving me a car where the person had like hand brakes because they were just like, this chick knows how to drive. And so I had 8 or 9 friends pile into my old 88 on my first day on my birthday, and it was a snowstorm. And so I'm driving everyone, and we like drive through a stop sign, and they're like, you just drove through it? And I'm like, we just drove through a stop sign. You have a brake too. And then I didn't see where the road started and because of the snow. So I was like driving it was only like a mile and a half, but it was a bad drive. And so all my friends poured out of my car and were like, Jenna's a terrible driver. And so I got worst driver. And then the other one I got, it was biggest tease. I wasn't a tease. I just didn't have sex.
Whoa.
And I was in New Jersey. So all the guys were kind of fast, but they changed it to biggest flirt in the yearbook because the teachers thought tease had like a weird subtext. So I was like biggest flirt and worst driver, which makes me seem like such a fucking floozy. But those are my superlatives.
Those are really, really good ones. Biggest flirt and worst driver does make you sound like a real all-time Jersey floozy. Mm-hmm. But I love it. I love that for you. Wow. What an incredible, insightful episode of this show we've had. Jena, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me on this silly little pod. Where can all of my listeners, you have so much amazing shit, I say. You have so much amazing content out in the world right now and coming out. Where can everyone listen and watch and hear and read?
So if you like true crime, or even if you don't like true crime, if you like the kind of like social justice, maybe like slightly comedic stuff, I have a show called Indefensible on Sundance TV and streaming on AMC Plus. It's actually, the first act is like the case, so it's not that funny, but it gets pretty good in certain parts. And the Casey Anthony episode is, I don't know how we made it funny, but it's pretty good. And that's out
Can't
now.
Wait. Love
and
it.
then, I have a book coming out in April.
I love that.
Called Not Funny.
That's so great. Wait, am I making up that you have a special?
I did just shoot a stand-up special too. It just came out on Peacock. It's called Lady Killer.
Yes. Yeah. Come on.
It's abortion jokes and stuff.
We're hitting the trifecta here. Book, true crime, stand-up special. The Holy Trinity. Wow. Thank you so much. This is so lovely. Please, everyone, go and intake more Jena. You will be smarter and funnier because of it. And, thank you so much for listening to my world famous podcast. Please only leave positive comments. I do this out of the kindness of my heart and because I love to. So positivity, 5 stars, like and subscribe. And until next week, stay cool, never change. Bye.
That was a Headgum podcast.